Moving into our last team of the AFC West, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. And our narrative for the year is, are the Chargers the most underrated team in the NFL? My answer is yes. Dobbs, what is your answer?
I would say I wouldn't look. I don't know if I'm ready to say they're the most, but they are certainly up there, and there's no doubt about that. And like we talk about, a lot of people are maybe, and even though they've accepted it, they might be underestimating how much of an impact that bringing Harbaugh into this team is going to really bolster them, right? And again, I like my big thing is right when we go to the Chargers and you take a look at that O line, right? You're saying to yourself, okay, we need first things first, Zion Johnson's got to make a big jump. But Harbaugh is the perfect guy to come in and to see that jump this year. And then, added Bradley Bozeman, moving Trey Pipkins over to guard, interestingly enough. And then we got Joe Alt on that right side kicking with Rashawn Slater. If Joe Alt is the player that I'm pretty certain that he is, him and Rashawn Slater are going to be an absolutely dynamic tackle duo for the next 5, 10 years, right? So you already have that one of the pretty much the two most important positions on your football team minus the quarterback sorted out. So you're in a really good position as far as that's concerned. And then Khalil Mack coming off the career year, if K Mack can have a similar year next year again, and again, this D line's a little bit weird because Joey Bosa, you never know how to feel about how many snaps is Joey even going to play that season. They added Bud Dupree. Tuli Tuipulotu plays on the outside and the inside, but he's very productive wherever he plays. Yeah, I think they're leaning much more towards kind of moving him mainly to just the interior this year. But regardless, the Chargers, the bottom line is they have a lot of good young talent, a lot of good ascending guys like the Alohi Gilmans of the Chargers. Like you got guys, you got Derwin James. I don't know if you saw this, Hunter, talking about how he's going to be involved in some offensive packages this year. Like it sounds like the Chargers. The Chargers are cooking up something quite interesting over here on the rest of the AFC West. And, back to the point of them being underrated. A lot of people just kind of forget about them. The Chargers are one of those teams that could easily sneak in here, uppercut a few teams when they don't expect it, come out and steal one of those wild card spots, maybe even steal a wild card game. It's definitely absolutely not. It's not in the realm of very unlikely, especially when you got a quarterback like Justin Herbert, who I think is going to make up just a hell of a jump this year. No other way to say it. Lad McConkey looking like he could be his best friend in 12 months. The Chargers definitely did set themselves up for a very smooth transition into what's the right word here? Because it wasn't like it was the rebuild. It was kind of like it was the competitive rebuild, and they kind of set themselves up perfectly for this year being the first result of that competitive rebuild. I think is the best way to say it.
Yeah, I think one of the main things, Dobbs, that we have to think about is Harbaugh has really won anywhere they've gone, right? And the Chargers not winning games these last couple years has not been because of lack of talent. It has become, it has, oh my Lord. It was because lack of coaching.
You mean that war criminal down there?
Bro,
I can't.
yes.
I refuse to say his name, but
Yeah.
you remember that war criminal down there
I
in
think
South
our
Carolina? Or
channel
South
might
Carolina. I mean,
explode if we,
Southern California.
man, we're all over the place. But with that being
We're all over
said,
the place.
I think just on coaching alone, it should grant them at least 2 more wins, 2 more years. Golly, I'm all over the place. So my concern
You
is
see what Brandon Staley does? You see what Brandon Staley does to your
he's
brain,
got me
bro?
in a blender, dude. He's got those fucking yoga poses before the game. He's got me in a blender. So, anyway, with that being said, we're getting all over the place. But I think, I struggle with the skill position room a little bit. I don't trust J.K. Dobbins to stay healthy. They have Gus Edwards, Kamani Vidal. I do think Lad McConkey is going to be an interesting player to watch out for. I think it will be very interesting to see how well or how involved he is in the offense. Now, I think he'll be very involved, but I'm talking more terms of like volume of like how many targets he's going to get. Now, we know this is a Greg Roman offense, so they're going to run the ball a ton. Herbert right now, mind you, this is going to come out in like a week or so it may be better, but he's dealing with a foot issue. And I heard the issue from what I was reading, it's not something that's horrible, but it just doesn't necessarily go away quickly. So that might be something he's playing with during the season. Easton Stick is not really that good. They signed Luis Perez, who played in the UFL. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting year for the Chargers, but I do think that the fact that they still do have that edge presence in Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, and then you have that Derwin James, Asante Samuel. I think this team is probably, when I say most underrated, I think my big thing is I think they're one of the teams that a lot of people are writing off this year. I think they have a very good chance to finish second in their division because of the coaching and the way that they run this team. So I think they're not going to be playing for a playoff spot this year. I still think they need, to add to their rooms. And it's kind of funny, Dobbs. Think about this. So you have a team like the San Francisco 49ers who builds a lot through their skill positions on offense, right? And they're willing to pay one guy on the line and then kind of not neglect the rest of the line, but just kind of have people that you feel okay putting out there. The Jim Harbaugh is all about the line, and it's like, fuck the skill positions, which is really funny. It's really like an opposite approach to building your team, and they both work. So it just shows that, like, if you can set a culture, right, and you can get the right players for your type of scheme and your type of roster construction, that it can work, and it can work really anywhere you go. I'm really interested to see how Joe Alt plays, but mainly for all that being said, I think the Chargers are going to be competitive in every single game they play this year, and that is not something that you could have said with Brandon Staley at the helm.
No, it's absolutely not. It's absolutely not. And last thing I want to say, I want to get it's not even a hot take off. It's really not at this point. I think a lot of Chargers fans are on the same bandwagon, but I think you're on the same bandwagon too. Look, I still think Gus is going to be getting those red zone touches. Nobody's taking those away from Gus. Gus might have another 10 plus touchdown season, right? But with that said, I do think that this team is Kamani Vidal's to take those majority reps by halfway through the year. But I could be totally wrong. But I do think if any of the teams I'm feeling where it's like, well, that's not even true, right? Like, I actually would say the Giants more than anyone else. But for one of the few teams where I'm like, that rookie's just going to come in and just steal that starting job, I think that it could happen real quick with Kamani Vidal here. So just had to get that one off my chest before we move on.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they work. Dobbs, who do you think is wide receiver one when the season starts? Or who do you think, I should say, has a better season? Josh Palmer or Ladd McConkey?
I honestly think that we're going to see Ladd McConkey go for like 95 plus targets this year. So I think I'm going to say Ladd, just like you were saying, purely off volume. Like, and I think the hands are going to look good. I think the route running is going to look crispy. But even if they don't necessarily this year, I think just off pure volume, I think he'll finish with the better year.
Do you think Quentin Johnson is on this team next year?
I think I'm sticking with him. He was my boy. Again, I'm always honest on my takes. He was one of my boys in last year's class, but you can go back. They can check the tape, Hunter. It's all out there still. I said, as much as I like him, I do think he's going to have a Devontae Adams-esque struggle with the drops the first few years. And if he can turn that around, he can be a really productive receiver. That it's all on record. Now, you know what? I'm leaning towards he might not. You're
dying on the Quentin Johnston hill.
But I'm not one to back out on my guys too early, Hunter. So I got to give him at least another year. I'd
be wiping my hands at him. I don't know, man.
I did at some point midway last year, and then I saw him make a few plays, and I was you know what? I gotta hold on to just a little longer. Just a little.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been team previews for every team in the AFC West. As always, if you don't know ball and want to know ball, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, let us know in the comments who you think will win the AFC West. And as always, thank you and have a great rest of your night.